to an assistant DPS director?
Yes, that's what's listed in the assigned package.
Okay, and did you also look at the size of the community, the full service or lack thereof?
The size of the community, I don't think directly correlates with the wages that have been provided. Unfortunately, some of the smaller communities may outweigh their salaries compared to some of the larger ones. So looking at a size of the local municipality and saying that's going to be what dictates what they're paying, I don't think does this position justice.
Okay. Questions from the board? No questions from the board. I would move that we approve the employment agreement between Redford Township and George Bednarski, but that we approve it at the rate of $77,925.33, which is exactly the average.
Second.
Motion has been made by me. The motion was seconded by Clerk Christie. Are there any other questions or comments? No other questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Mr. Christie. Yes. Ms. Kangas.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Excuse me? Yes.
Ms. Kovacs.
Yes. Do we also need to add in the start date of when this compensation should have taken place, Ms. Sarah?
Like we have it already in there, it would be effective May 15th, effective the date of the board's decision. That's in the agreement that's already stated.
Would the board be open to considering making this payment retroactive since he's been in the position since February something?
I can support that.
Mr. Hitchcock?
For non-union employees where it hasn't been negotiated, you can't make the pay retroactive for an employee. Now, to get around that, you could prospectively pay him more for the rest of the current year, for example, to cover the difference if you thought it deserved to have retroactive. So whatever pay differential is lost could be paid prospectively by you deciding that the salary going forward should be a little higher to cover that. But you can't give retroactive pay to an employee after they perform the services.
To non-union employees?
Yeah, there's an exception to that is a union can negotiate retroactive pay.
Okay. I would consider a secondary motion if Ms. Kangas, you had said that you supported that thought process.
I support.
So I would need you to make that in the form of a motion.
So I move to adapt the salary moving forward to show compensation for the time that he began working in the position to now to cover the differential. So I can't do the math,
So you would spread it out through the end of the calendar year.
yeah.
We'll get the amount of time and pay and essentially that would feel out to you guys.
Thank you. Is there support for that?
Support.
Motion was made by Trustee Kangas to provide an additional compensation to Mr. Bednarski for the work that he completed while in the position on an interim basis, but to prorate that throughout the calendar year. The motion was made by Kangas. The motion was seconded by Jackson. Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Treasurer Kavanaugh.
Sarah, can you tell me just without, what was the difference between Rick Pringle and George?
In the contracts that we initially provided, there was no difference. In the averages from the Conference of Western Wayne, it's about $500 difference between the two positions that were quoted.
Because I know that early on we discussed the fact that George was earning differently because he wasn't salaried.
Yes.
So was there any additional difference, let's say, because of the fact that he is now the superintendent or temporary superintendent as to what Rick was earning?
We hadn't adjusted any of their pay during this process. We were waiting on these employment agreements to be ratified before any compensation additionally was provided to them. So we would have to look at what the difference would be with their proposed salary versus what they've made to determine whatever retroactive pay would be.
George was an hourly employee
Right.
and was eligible for overtime pay. And Mr. Pringle is a salaried exempt employee.
Correct.
And this one was on both the salaried and salaried.
Right, so there was a difference
Yeah.
between what was being paid, and I think that's something we should take a look at. But-
And I think that may be.
Well, the motion has already been made and approved
Okay, I
at
would
that
just-
compensation. Now we're just talking about
Right.
the difference there. Any other questions? No other questions, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Kangas.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Cobars.
Yes, motion passes. The second person under consideration this evening is Mr. Rick Pringle.
The proposed salary is going to be the same that we had proposed for Mr. Bednarski. We based that off of the Conference of Western Wayne's Building Director official comparables that we had, which equated to $77,495 as the average. His position essentially is the building director. He handles the oversight of everything on the operations in that spectrum and defaults to the Department of Public Services superintendent.
I would make a motion to approve this salary agreement for Mr. Pringle in the amount of $77,495.92.
Second.
Motion made by me, motion seconded by Clerk Christie. Are there any other discussion?
To the chair,
Trustee Taylor.
do we want to take in the same consideration for Mr. Pringle as we did for Mr. Rednarski about the pay, not retroactive, but making the pay?
If it's okay with you, I'd like to do that as a separate motion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dennis?
It was also the intention to try to keep both superintendents at the same pay scale. To ask this board, if it's possible, to also make the motion to include that they're both paid at the same, I don't have my notes here, I apologize. I think it was, $77,925, or it was to have them both at the same level.
And while I appreciate that thought process, when we can tie a salary recommendation to factual data, it makes much more sense without regard to the fact that one person may or may not get $500 more a year. And I appreciate it, but I don't believe that that's the right way to go about it. That's just me.
Thank you.
Would the board like to consider Mr. Dennis's information?
To the chair,
Trustee Taylor.
I would like to hear Mr. Dennis's rationale for wanting to have the two gentlemen at the same salary.
Both Rick and George are doing a fabulous job. They both have a lot of responsibility now as the superintendents. They oversee a large staff on each side. I think it would just be at this point, since they both have ran into the superintendent position as interim for the past 3 months, that we would keep them at the same level at this time. Just if, I know, like for example, George is not here because he is on vacation this week. He would be here if not. I know if George is gone, we do work with Paul Horn, our foreman. If he was not there, Rick kind of steps up to try to handle the building when I'm not there, and vice versa. George also does the same. So they work off each other. They've become a real big team in the last few months, and I just think we're kind of working together hand in hand in regards to moving us forward. So I just think it was a move that we spoke about prior. About at the same salary. I know that was the intention on the memo that was prepared by Don Wood, and it's of course up to the board. I did see the info myself just last night as well. So, so I just thought I'd come up here and just keep both together at the same level that they're working together basically.
Several department heads work together and they're all paid differently based on the department that they work for or their skill set too. Trustee Jackson.
To the chair, I noticed that the requirement for George's position was higher than the requirements for Rick's position. So given just that one fact alone, I would recommend that we keep the salary at $77,925.
Other comments from the board? The motion was made by me, the motion was seconded by Clerk Christie to approve the employment agreement with Township and Rick Pringle in the amount of $77,495.92. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Kangas?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Ms. Cobles?
Yes, motion passes. Was there a secondary motion that you were interested in making, Trustee Taylor?
I'd like to make a motion that we reflect the pay for Mr. Pringle in the same manner that we did for Mr. Bodarski, to reflect the 3 months that he's already been working in that position, to be divvied out over the next year.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion is made by Trustee Taylor. The motion is seconded by Trustee Kangas to award Mr. Pringle an amount equal to this compensation prorated but paid out through the end of the calendar year. Is that correct? That's the motion. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Kangas?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes?
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Cobles?
Yes, motion passes. The third item on the under employment contracts would be for Don Wood. There is no supporting documentation and no recommendation. I would ask that this item be removed from the agenda.
To the chair?
Trustee Taylor.
We all got copies of that.
Yeah,
A contract emailed to us. I don't know why you don't have it when you have the other two, because those came in later than Mr. Wood's.
Where did they go to? Because I'm looking at the clerk's office.
We don't have a copy of Don's.
I got a copy of it. It's on my computer.
I got a copy.
Should I give you a
So-
copy?
I'd like to keep it on the agenda.
I did not get a copy of it, oddly enough. And,
Oh, were you in the office today?
It was
Nope.
mailed to.
Okay, well, that would be why.
I don't have it in front of me, but it was sent to me by email and I've read it.
the information is supposed to go through the clerk's office for dissemination to the board. And if I didn't get it from the clerk's office and called there today and was told specifically it did not exist, it doesn't exist.
But wouldn't it stand to reason if Clerk Christie received it, it did go to the clerk's office? Is he not the clerk's office?
Did the clerk disseminate the information?
Well, ordinarily, when something comes to me, it goes to both Tina and Marcia, and apparently it did not this time.
Thank you. So it did not come to me. So I do not have the information, and I would still ask that it be removed from the agenda. That and the fact that Mr. Wood is meeting here.
I do believe he's homesick with pneumonia. Deputy Clerk Tina, would you like to copy this so that everybody can have a
Yes,
copy
she
of it?
can read it.
Is that what you want me to do?
Yes.
You're welcome to copy it. I still haven't read it, so I'm going to ask for a recess while I do.
I think that that's reasonable.
Thank you. We're in recess. Complete copy?
Check with Attorney
I got
Hitchcock,
it.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
he
he
does.
might have one.
He's here too.
Thank you.
It's very unusual because
Oh, she needs a second to postpone it.
Whole house in general. All the two cats survived, so they had small pet shop. They're gonna make a fourth couple of years. One guy started home last night. He's out by the station.
Thank you. The board is back in session after a recess, so I could read this employment agreement. fact that we're doing this today, May 15th, is the day that Mr. Wood is supposed to have permanent residency in this township, according to state law, or have a vote of 5 people.
Correct.
He doesn't live here today. In this contract, it appears as if you are giving him an opportunity to move into the township by May 15th of 2019. Is that correct?
That's what the contract says, that you, the board in effect will be waiving the 90-day requirement that's in the statute to become a resident in preference for the language that's in the proposed contract, which gives them until May 15th, 2019 to become a resident.
So state law, as I understand it, relative to residency requirement, is pretty clear, 90 days, or the board may vote to waive that 90 days. There's nothing in that law that says that we can put an end on that, is there? So we would be doing something above and beyond. The way I saw it was that you either waive it or you require it, not that you can extend it for a year. When charter law is absent, it doesn't exist, you don't have the right, at least that's what we've been told in the past.
To the chair.
Well,
I'd like Mr. Hitchcock to answer first.
So you can, well, you're right, the statute doesn't specifically say, it says it can be waived by, and it doesn't say whether it can be waived in its entirety or waived for a limited period of time.
And in all of the training classes that I've been through and the board has been through, we have been reminded that we are only afforded those rights that are expressly documented in the law. If it's absent, you don't have that right.
Well, but the question is whether or not by waiving, you can waive for a specific period of time, or whether, as you said, you have to waive forever. And the statute doesn't tell you you can't either way. So that's what this proposed language says. If you prefer to waive it entirely, you can do that also.
The way I read it was 90 days or waive it with 5 votes or more.
First paragraph says that they have to become a resident within 90 days after his or her appointment. And then later, another sentence, that last sentence, in fact, it says that the requirements of this section may be waived by a resolution adopted by a vote of 2/3 of the members of the Township Board elected that.
And there is not a prepared resolution waiving that either. This is an employment agreement, not a resolution.
Well, you're going to have to pass a resolution to approve the contract. As part of that resolution, you can waive the requirement. If you don't waive it, then, as you pointed out, he can't continue to be employed because he is not, as of today, at least a resident.
Those are my questions. Comments from the board.
To the chair.
Trustee Kangas.
My understanding in reading the Charter Act and reading what other municipalities have done with waiving residency requirement, the Charter Act didn't specify what we were waiving or how we were waiving, it just said waive. So to me that leaves a lot of room for interpretation. I don't think it's unreasonable to give Mr. Woods a year to move here, especially after everything he's been through. He's had the loss of his father. He's had a lot on his plate. And I could not move in 90 days. I had to do it with just normal circumstances. I don't see anything unreasonable about the extension. To the chair.
Trustee Jackson.
typically, the law gives you the minimum that you could do. If you're doing something over and above what the requirements are, I would tend to think that that would be in compliance with state law. Mr. Hitchcock, do you have an opinion on that?
Well, that could well be the interpretation some court would have. It's because it doesn't identify specifically how you have to waive. It doesn't say must waive entirely. It says you can waive the 90 days. So I think it's logical that the conclusion would be you could waive it for a longer period of time than the 90 days if you had 2/3 vote.
Isn't it true also that municipalities, because there's also a conflicting law out there where this 1992, there's a new act that states you cannot mandate residency for appointed employees, only for elected employees, and that most municipalities are now waiving it because there's no test case in the courts between the two conflicting laws?
Yeah, most municipalities are not trying to enforce any residency requirement that they have because of that subsequent statute. Now that statute does not in any way, as I read it, say that it is superseding the supervisor statute. So it doesn't do the waiver for you, but the mere fact that there was another piece of legislation that came out, it said it was focused on local residency rules, not a state statute that had a residency requirement. But you're correct that most municipalities have been now required to not enforce any local created residency requirements.
Thank you.
To the chair.
Trustee Jackson?
I move that we approve the employment agreement between Charter Township of Redford and Superintendent Townwood
As written. Friendly amendment that we carve out the residency requirement to act on that separately.
No.
Do not accept that friendly amendment. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Kangas?
Yes.
Ms. Koblars?
Absolutely not. Moving on to the brownfield for Pat Milliken.
Point of order. Shouldn't we say that that motion passed?
Pretty clear that it passed, isn't it?
But you usually say that regardless, and I thought it had to be stated.
It will be reflected in the minutes that the
Okay.
motion passed.
Just checking.
I'm sure my notes will not say absolutely not either. I find it ironic, though, since we asked for a point of order, that many of you couldn't show up for a regularly scheduled televised meeting last week, Tuesday, and here we are deciding this major change in our government structure, and not even a television camera here today. And funny, you could all make it today. But
Maybe you should
that's
have
just me.
emailed us to find out where we were. I was at a conference.
Yeah,
Is that too hard for you to,
In
you know?
Hawaii.
Yeah, you know,
I'd rather
This is
be-
really off topic. I think we should stick to the agenda.
yeah, I'm sure you
Yeah,
would.
I'm sure she would.
Sure you would. I would have preferred to have the information before I walked in the door.
Well, you
too.
were
It was
emailed.
emailed to
Yeah.
you, but I already have seen
Again, the clerk's office is the keeper of the record, and we have talked about this a million times with OMA violations that have repeatedly occurred with this board.
Sure.
All information comes through the clerk's office, which would be the deputy clerk and Marcia Kish. And if that didn't happen, this information was not disseminated. This information is not recorded correctly. But that fits your preferred mode of operandi anyway.
Supervisor Koblars, those are.
The
personal
reimbursement
attacks.
agreement regarding brownfield
Excuse
is
me.
what, Mr. Dennis?
No, that's.
I run the meeting and I'm moving on.
No,
No, that's not fair that you get to hijack it and attack us. And then
I get to run the meeting.
Well, none of that will be part of.
Won't be a part of the minutes, and we're not on TV, so we're all good.
Absolutely.
Reimbursement agreement, Brownfield.
Supervisor, honorable board.
No, I don't feel better, but that's okay. You know what? I need another recess. And so Treasurer Kavanaugh can stop crying in my ear.
I'm not crying.
Recess takes.
When I hear wham, 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 that's crying in my ear. Yeah, that, I can call a recess whenever I want. I run the meetings.
So how long do we sit here at this time?
We'll go out and have a smoke with her.
Sorry, we don't smoke.
Got a house from through the SNAP program?
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
She's on oxygen? I think she's on oxygen.
Yeah, she's a spokesmember for,
Okay, we're back from recess.
really
Mr.
nice.
Dennis.
She was.
Supervisor, honorable board. Back on April 23rd, or 24th, excuse me, we met here as a board and we approved the brownfield plan for Pat Milliken Ford. I did forget to attach a reimbursement agreement at that time, and I do apologize. There is a copy for you. It was sent out with the agenda last week as well, and it is a standard form that reflects the terms that will be reflected with the reimbursement agreement. Again, it's a 30-year plan. Pat Milliken Ford will be reimbursed over 25 years. The supervisor and clerk both sign it as standard practice. Brian Godfrey will sign it on part of Pat Milliken Ford, and the brownfield plan will be attached to it. Once it is signed, we'll get 3 copies signed by the township tomorrow, and it'll be forwarded to, 1 copy forwarded to Brian Godfrey, and we'll have 2 here.
Questions from the board?
To the chair,
Trustee Taylor.
I move to approve the reimbursement agreement between the Redford Township and Pat Milliken Ford.
Support.
Motion has been made to approve the agreement. I think you do have to recognize that it's with the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, Trustee Taylor.
Certainly, I move to approve the reimbursement agreement through the Brownfield Development Authority and Pat Milliken Ford.
Motions, or the second still stands?
Yes.
Motion by Trustee Taylor, seconded by Treasurer Kavanaugh. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Kangas.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Ms. Colruyt.
Yes, motion passes. The next item is to approve the CDBG Black Grant Program.
Madam Supervisor, I did pass out a copy of the fiscal year 18-19 annual action plan. We did receive our allocation. This year through HUD, we will receive a total of $911,644, which is approximately just under $100,000 increase from last year. Thanks to Congress. And just to let you know, we are looking to look at 19 activities this year. Just to kind of go through a few of them with you without going through the action plan yet. We are looking to spend a total budget of $1,212,000. That would be an estimated a little over $300,000 in program income, which comes from the sale of our SNAP homes and through our housing rehab program. And from the $911,644, again, it's a total budget of $1,212,000. We have 19 total activities. Again, we're looking at the acquisition of properties for blight for demolition. The total of both categories would be $40,000 of acquisition. We are also supplementing Dollaride as we do on an annual basis, an amount of $40,000. We are increasing the housing rehab program by about $10,000. This year will be $161,000. We are seeing an increase with people that are applying for the program. We opened up the waiting list last year. We took about close to 300 people that applied for the waiting list for the housing rehab program in our targeted areas. Now it's over about a 2.5 week period. So it takes about 2 years to get through that list. And at this point, people are looking at do their house roofs, their driveways, furnaces, et cetera, et cetera. Also, we are starting a new program this year. I'm not sure if HUD will accept it. It is an eligible activity, but we're calling it the Neighborhood Cleanup Program. What we're doing with the Neighborhood Cleanup Program is we're going to concentrate in our target areas. We're going to do a mass mailing regarding rat prevention. It's going to be a flyer we send out to all the addresses in our 13 eligible areas, census tracts. And so we'll do a mass mailing, and then from there, if we can, we are going to try to start, in regards to the rat prevention, possibly doing some purchase of rat cages, closets, where the resident could rent it, and then if they did not bring it back, we would get the amount of the rental fee would be what we purchased it for, and if they did, we would then go purchase more, so it become program income to purchase more. We think that the handouts, I know that the supervisor put something together the last few years. We're hoping to get it to mail out to all the households. I think there's probably going to be somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 households that we're going to try to hit. Again, this is something new to HUD. It's under Neighborhood Cleanup Program. Again, that's our name of the eligibility, but it is something that we're not sure if HUD will wrap their arms around it if it's something that we can do. Next, we're still doing Neighborhood Watch, $4,000. Park improvements, still doing ADA walkways. Redford Interfaith, we increased that $5,000 to $30,000. They do great things at Redford Interfaith. Sue, they just had their 20th anniversary, and Sue and her staff just do, and the volunteers, I should say, do awesome things over there. Senior Center improvements, we did increase to $120,000. We're hoping a little bit of our program income that will carry over from this past year. We need to get a new roof on the Redford Community Center. And so the money that we're placing in here will help offset some of the costs. If I can do the whole roof, if not, we have two different levels. We'll try to do one roof first and then do the next level next year if possible. Town hall improvements, we have allocated $30,000 to improve the town hall, the two restaurants here on the first floor and the second floor to ADA standards. Senior citizen programming is $5,000. We are looking to finalize this year sidewalk improvements along Inkster Road. We have a few dollars from a couple years ago, and we're allocating another $25,000. And this would be to install the sidewalks that are not existent between 7 Mile and Grand River Avenue. We still offer some assistance through the sidewalk program. If someone is found in violation and they're low income, they can get assistance for the payment. We do have our site clearance. Again, that's a total of $55,000, which would correlate with our acquisition piece. The SNAP program is still at $300,000, and that's for the purchase and the rehab and the selling of, we do roughly 4 to 5 houses per year through our program. We are making our Section 108 loan payment was for the roads that we did back from 2008 to 2010. That is, I think, our 9th year. We have 6 more years of payments left through the loan. Youth services, it's $70,000. That covers 1 full-time and 1 part-time staff member in the youth department, and the general admin is $242,000, which is 20% of the grant. Those 19 activities under HUD, again, is $1,212,000.
Mike, you're looking for a vote to approve the action plan as you presented it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Questions from the board? Pleasure of the board.
To the chair.
Trustee Taylor.
I move that we approve the annual action plan as presented. Support.
Okay. You do need to include the year.
My apologies. The annual action plan for program year 2018-2019.
Thank you. Support still stands?
Yes.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Kangas?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes, bless you.
Thank you.
Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the CDBG program environmental review.
Madam Supervisor, each year after this process occurs, We do compile an environmental review record. It's a few hundred pages long. We don't finish it quite yet, but it also comes along with the request for release of funds. The township supervisor will sign that, and there's a form that is filled out called the 424 that we authorize. We sign it to the township. It is then submitted to HUD, and it will then release the $911,644,000.
Questions from the board? It's the pleasure of the board.
To the chair,
Trustee Jackson.
I move to approve the Community Development Block Grant Program fiscal year 2018-19 environmental review record and request release of funds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Jackson, motion seconded by Trustee Kangas. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Christie, yes. Ms. Kangas?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Ms. Koblar?
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
The SNAP 2 program site tour is available to trustees immediately following this meeting, I believe. Because there is a quorum present, the meeting will have to be adjourned at the end of the tour. But Clerk Christie and I will not be joining the tour. We've been through it a couple of times already. So at this point, the regular business has ended and the trustees will depart for their tour. Are there any other questions? No? Enjoy your tour.
Thank you.
Don't forget to adjourn the meeting, please. You can.
And then also we got road out.